partly sunny in the 60s and 70s, and then into Sunday, sunny and in the 70s. I'm KIRO 7 Pinpoint meteorologist Nick Allard.
It is still mostly cloudy and 58 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
Listen on your smart speakers, Amazon, Google Home, and Apple HomePod. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Subaru Studios. Welcome to The Big Show. We are streaming on Facebook Live. Wow, the Dow's up almost 300 points, 52 and a half minutes before the close. So that's been quite a little 4-day run for the Dow. So we'll keep you posted on that in the next hour. So yesterday afternoon, did you go home after work yesterday, Nicole?
Yes.
Were you stuck in absolute gridlock?
I guess. I mean, I always am when I leave here. I leave around 3:15. I'm always in.
It took me, usually it takes me about 20 minutes to get home. 20, 25 minutes.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That is. But you get out right at the exact
I
moment
fly
you have
out of
to.
here.
A 5 or 10 minute differential could
It's
be.
huge.
It really
It's huge.
can.
But I don't know what the problem was, so I tried doing side streets. So you had
Called rain.
No,
There were rain showers.
I think there was something else.
I heard. I don't know if it was then, but there was an accident in Linwood, and
Okay, it must have been that. But anyway, it's just gridlocked. It was a nightmare on the side streets. We're all gridlocked too, and we have no alternatives for those of us who must drive. And it struck me again just how insane it is that our leaders, that they not only don't provide us with alternatives, that they haven't expanded the grid for the vast majority of people who do drive, but in fact they have restricted it. They have very carefully constructed this gridlock. Let me make this the big lead.
The Big Lead. Big Local.
So I'm frustrated yesterday at the lack of alternatives for those of us who drive, because we do pay what will be the highest gas tax in the country after all of the new taxes that were just added in this legislative session are phased in. We will have the highest gas tax in the United States of America. Is it reasonable for the vast majority of us who do drive around the region, who have lives that cannot be lived by bicycle or mass transit, wouldn't it be reasonable for those of us who are paying the most in taxes that instead of contracting roads, that they would expand them a little bit, give us more options, do the signal timing, do with Bothell and Lake City Way what they've done with Aurora and make it essentially a thoroughfare where every intersection's either an overpass or an underpass, so you can free fly north and south. But no, they would never consider that. In fact, they are doing the exact opposite. And at Reason.com, the libertarian website, they had a piece that in California, the people who pay the gas tax down there, the drivers, they are revolting because they recognize that not only are they not getting anything for their money, that they are being more and more restricted with road diets and elimination of car lanes than ever before, because that is the leftist mantra there and here. So why? Why would they want to create gridlock? Well, they say that it's to reduce fatalities, that the slower cars go. So if they can gridlock, I mean, let's face it, if you try to get from South Lake Union to I-5 in downtown Seattle, and it takes you 20 minutes to go one block, you're probably not going to kill anybody because you move 1 inch every 10 seconds. And that's what they want. They want to create gridlock and chaos on the roads because their fantasy is, well, then everybody will get out of their cars if we make it so miserable an experience in which to drive. And they point out in this reason piece that most people who drive simply do not have the other mass transit and bicycling options available to them because of their lifestyle, because of how far away they live from work, or because of their family commitments, their community commitments, right before or after work. And so down in California, all of these road diets, they say they're doing it to improve safety. And so this is part of the plan. Gridlock is very carefully calculated. And so the more you pay in gas taxes, the more they fritter away that money on things like bike lanes that hardly anybody uses. Now there's a big backlash. Mike O'Brien and Kashama Sawant, they just sent a letter to SDOT because on 35th Northeast, the neighbors got together and they said, we don't want a road diet. It'll destroy our parking, it'll destroy our businesses, it'll destroy our community. And they said, well, we found a bicyclist with a helmet cam and cars were going into the center turn lane to go around that bicyclist. Yeah, that's what we do to be safe. We swerve around bicyclists so as to not harm them. But they said because of that, that's proof that they should put that street on a road diet. And again, this is just the intellectual vacuity of people like Mike O'Brien and Kashama Sawant. A couple of things. Bicyclists should be responsible for themselves. If you choose to ride on an arterial, then you have to live with the consequences of mixing it up with cars. You know what? You don't want cars swerving around you? Go 1 block west and ride on 34th Northeast, which is a side street. Go 5 blocks east and ride on the Burke-Gilman Trail, which is a protected bicycle and running path and walking. You want to be safe? Go ride on arterials. What's the matter with you? Go onto a side street. They're much safer. And I don't want to have to slow down at every intersection because those are, uncontrolled force. You have to stop and look at the intersections. Well, then that's the choice you're making. You can either have a completely safe ride given existing infrastructure, or you can assume greater risks by riding on an arterial that has cars. That's on the bicyclist. But they just wrote a letter this week saying, cars are swerving around the bicyclist, so we've got to put that on a road diet. And they want to do it throughout the region, not just in Seattle. They want to do this throughout the region. And then I told you about the Magnolia Bridge. There's a big outcry in the leftist media because Magnolia is a community of wealthy people. Zillow says the average home price is close to $1 million and that we shouldn't provide a replacement bridge for the 17,000 people a day who use the bridge that was damaged in the earthquake almost 20 years ago. They want to create gridlock there as well in the two existing. And so the insanity continues region-wide. We have a freeway that was designed to pinch down to 1 lane under the convention center, which creates incredible... I was driving from SeaTac Saturday morning, 10 a.m., and it's gridlock trying to get through the convention center on northbound I-5. Look what's happened in Tacoma. How long's that Tacoma Dome I-5 project been going? 25 years now? 25 years? Things getting better now. Gridlocked every day for every way. It's all by design. But that's what happens when you put radicals in charge. Speaking of which, next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead. Bizarro World.
I told you yesterday about the study that has been commissioned by the city of Seattle to perhaps tear up the public golf courses in the city, Jackson, Jefferson, West Seattle, Inner Bay. Because, and I know the reason, it's because golf is primarily a sport played by white males. And as I told you yesterday, there is no group of creatures on earth more loathsome to leftist politicians than white males. And there's no group that must be catered to and given more to than low-income people or no-income people or street vagrant addicts. And so they have a study out there considering tearing up the public golf courses to put in public housing or low-income housing. Channel 7, our news partners, since we talked about this yesterday, they talked to some golfers who were reacting to that.
I was shocked.
I think it's really disappointing they're even looking at it.
My buddies and I, we play every weekend. And it's always a city course. We don't play any private courses.
Maggie Anthony's a golfer who used to work with Parks and Rec, and she says, really? They're going to tear up golf courses, perhaps?
Well, I think we are making the best use of this land. It's park property. They're golf courses. Everybody loves them. They're open to everyone.
And yeah, why don't we tear up every parkland? Since Seattle Parks controls the golf courses, why don't we get rid of all the parks in Seattle? Green Lake. Let's just put low-income housing everywhere at Green Lake, and we can give heroin addicts waterfront view. Take out the running path around Green Lake and just put tiny houses on there for heroin addicts and let them look out at the lake every day. Why do we need Shoal and Golden Gardens and Alki? You can put some pin pilings in the sand, and we could put wet houses, literally and figuratively. They could get the mist of the sea on them, and we could allow people to continue to drink and use heroin until they die and are replaced by another addict. Why are we just doing this with the golf courses? Oh, yeah. I forgot. Sorry, white males. I forgot. Sorry about that. Maggie Anthony, the golfer you just heard from, told KIRO 7 News that she wants a town hall on this.
Over 220 people show up. It was standing room only.
And because she said that the golf courses, they produce some revenues.
That's a burden that's pretty tough to bear, and no other programs in the park department have to bear that burden.
They have to pay 5% of profits to Parks and Rec, plus money paid toward capital investment. And, yeah, the people who use them, they'd hate to see them destroyed. And I told you the story. If you had a Seattle school card, you could play the public courses for $2.50 when I was at Ballard High School. I played 54 holes one summer day with a buddy because it was accessible. It got me playing and loving a sport for a lifetime. But it's also, again, a sport that the politicians on the far left loathe. It's kind of like they hate people who have to commute in their cars, and they hate golfers.
We constantly see kids out there with their families. We see kids walking their dog while their dad golfs. You can't lose that. That's family. We constantly see kids out there with their families. We see kids walking their dog while their dad golfs. You can't lose that. That's family.
Wow, he said that twice for some reason. So there you have it. It's just craziness. You just heard in Ursula's news. They want to tear up Fort Lawton, an open space at Discovery Park. And again, I remember going on field trips when I was in elementary school, when it was a working military base at Fort Lawton. And they want to tear that up for low-income housing. They want to tear up golf courses for low-income housing. We've got the far left are eco-terrorists. They're cutting down 5,500 trees so that they can put up a concrete rail line alongside the freeway. And you notice the loss of those trees, and wait until that concrete rail line goes in. You're really going to be going from a natural freeway side setting to a disaster. But we got people in charge who seem to hate the environment even though they're talking and whining every second about climate change. And I cannot believe, I really can't believe the transformation that I've seen. And it's not even incremental anymore. The created gridlock, tearing down trees, looking to tear up golf courses, looking to tear up Fort Lawton. We have some really bad people in positions of power right now. And then we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on bicycle infrastructure that 2.8% of the population uses for their commute. The more we have spent, the lower the percentage of bike commuters we have in this region by their own count. But did you see the big story on bike commuters this week? The big story was that there's a gender gap, that 9% of white males are bike commuters and only 3% of women. And the difference between that and the 2.8% stat I just gave, 2.8% regularly commute to work via bicycle. And this poll that they were citing was, have you ridden your bike for transportation any time in the last week? So that's going to be a much higher number. If you do it once a week, then you'd be counted in that. Anyway, 9% of white males, only 3% of women. Bicycle, they said, once a week. And so the big story was that there's a bicycle gender gap. And what was the conclusion? Oh, it means we have to spend more because women don't want to ride their bike to work unless there's a separated bike trail and interconnected. That's nonsense. The reason, Nicole, check me on this. I'm positive about this. How long does it take you to get ready for work?
About an hour.
Takes me 7 minutes. And my wife, says this all the time. My wife will, if we're going out for the night, she'll get in the shower, she'll be drying her hair, she'll be, half hour into it. I'll walk in, shower, walk out, just towel dry my hair, pull on my clothes. I'm ready. 7 minutes.
It's mostly a hair thing.
Exactly.
Hair takes so long.
You're not going to ride a bike to work and then do an hour here at work to get ready.
No.
Right?
I'm not going to.
And
no.
Women aren't going to do that. That's not going to change by spending billions more on bike infrastructure. Guys don't care as much about how we look. Obviously, we're a mess. And women aren't going to do that. But instead, they're saying, well, this is proof that to get more women riding, we need to spend $100 million to interconnect separated grade bike. Baloney! Isn't it interesting, too, that the far left tells us there are an infinite number of genders and there's no such thing as men and women, unless they need it to justify some tax spending. And then it's, women aren't riding bikes, let's spend more on bike trails. It's insane! It's all insane! And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
Ursula's going to check the news for you. And then, in Eastside, Kirkland-based home builder bilking dozens of customers out of millions of dollars. That's the allegation. And our Carolyn Osorio talked to some of the alleged victims. You'll hear about that next.